greenhouse people? We are back with another episode of Tech on Demand, where our goal is always to help you grow your best crops ever. I'm your host, Bill Calkins, and throughout 2026, probably beyond, I'm going to catch up with different people in the professional horticulture space and find out a little bit more about their careers, their passions, and journeys in the world of plants, and much more. I'm calling these conversations Pick 4 because I sent each guest a list of 12 questions, and you guessed it, they picked 4 to answer and discuss. Today, I am psyched to be joined by Tanya Carvalho, the Territory Manager for Canada with Ball Flora Plant and Selecta One. Tanya is possibly our industry's biggest advocate and a passionate green industry representative who truly cares about the customers she serves. And I think I'm really selling her short with that description because she's amazing. And you really can't help but fall more in love with flowers and plants after interacting with Tanya. I'm sure this conversation is going to inspire. Let's get into it. Tanya, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Before we get started, I just need to ask, can you tell the listeners a little bit about your role, the territory you cover? It's kind of funny to say a territory. It's like an entire country. And I guess what makes the green industry in Canada so special?
So my region, like you said, is all of Canada. I get to travel coast to coast, working with our growers and the ball seed sales force, of course, getting new and exciting genetics into their production planning. And what makes our growers so special and the people in the industry so special up here is that it is a very relationship-based industry. I would call all of the customers my friends. We all have personal phone numbers that we share, and I've vacationed with a few of our customers. It's just a very family-friendly environment to work in.
This episode of Tech on Demand is brought to you by Prospient, delivering world-class greenhouse structures and systems. From innovative design and architecture to site development and project budgeting, the Prospient team provides the expertise to bring your vision to life. With local manufacturing across the U.S. and Canada, Prospient offers the scale and supply chain reliability you can trust, making them one of North America's largest manufacturers of commercial greenhouses. Prospient, leaders in greenhouse design, manufacture, and build. Learn more and connect with the expert team at prospient.com. That's cool. And I've traveled quite a bit in Canada. I've been to a lot more provinces than most Americans. I can say that, and I agree. It is a wonderful sort of vibe that you guys have really across the whole country, and very tight knit. It's always fun. I always learn something and always leave feeling really, really good. So another question before we get started. I follow all your adventures on social media, and I'm guessing some of our listeners do as well. Why is it so important for you to share the stories of the greenhouses that you work with? Because that's actually extra work for you, but I'm sure it doesn't feel that way. But those of us who do a lot of communicating know it really is. So why do you do that? I mean, you're one of the rare people who actually get deep into the stories when you're out traveling for work.
Well, I remember when I started with Ball, there really wasn't anyone doing social awareness like I am now, with whether you say B2B or our end consumer. You know, PW has a great program where they reach their end consumer, but there wasn't really a lot of people in the industry reaching grower partners, sales reps, anyone, breeders, brokers. And I was always involved on the social side, even in my own personal life. So when I started in horticulture at the greenhouse in Bradford here many, many years ago, I started posting from there, and then it just expanded when I came to Ball. And the reason I love to do it is because not only am I reaching other people in the industry, but I'm also reaching our end consumer. And they like to see what's new and exciting. They like to see where their plants come from. And I remember the first time I posted from a production facility in Nicaragua. The amount of people that reached out to me to say, Nicaragua, what are you doing in Nicaragua? And why are you wearing a green apron? And then it just continued to grow from there. So I love it. I love sharing what I get to see and what I get to do. And I get fantastic feedback from it.
That's cool. And it really is a behind the scenes that a lot of people don't get to see. And you're right. I do think it energizes people. It's funny you talk about like B2B social media and how not a lot of people were doing it back then. I was just on a webinar a couple of weeks ago about B2B social media, and we are still not even at the tip of the iceberg of what's possible. So you're one of the pioneers, and it's awesome. Good work on that. And I'm glad that you enjoy it because I can't wait to keep following.
Thank
So,
you.
all right, you ready to get into the 4 questions that you
Let's
picked?
do it.
Okay, awesome. All right, I'm going straight into question 1, and this is one of my favorite questions to ask because I think we can learn from others in our industry because we all get hit with these same questions. How do you explain our industry to strangers, friends, or family?
Okay, well, I get this question. I get asked a lot what I do. And you can imagine I fly across the country and everywhere a lot. And always that wind down when the announcement comes on and says, prepare for landing in 15 minutes. All of a sudden the lights come on and your next door neighbor next to you becomes a chatty Cathy. And they're like,
Yep.
hey, so where are you going? What are you doing? What do you do for work? And I always have to pause because you can't just say, I work in horticulture, because a lot of times a blank stare goes across people's face. They
Right.
think I'm a farmer in agriculture.
Mm-hmm.
And so I can't just say, well, I work with plants. That doesn't make sense either. So I end up going into this long story of where cutting comes from, from offshore production. And that I always use the reference, a cutting looks like a little piece of parsley or something, if you would make a salad. And that people are dumbfounded that that is how our plants start coming into North America. So then the questions build from there. What do? You're traveling. I said, oh, well, I travel probably 75% of the time. And then they're blown away at that. And where do you travel? And I like to tell the story of pack trials, what
Mm-hmm.
California Spring Trials is, and 24 in the Netherlands, and going to product selection meetings. People are completely dumbfounded, that there's a difference from a red geranium to another red geranium.
Yep.
So it ends up going well past the 15 minutes of the plane landing, and I'm walking up getting ready to go to head to my rental car, and they're following me because I've opened my phone and I've showed them
Yep.
plans.
No, that's great. And I agree. And when you get asked that question, you almost never have time to ask them back what they do because they just are so fascinated
Yeah.
because they have that assumption that like people just throw seeds in a pot and the plant blooms there on the pallet where they buy it. And when they hear the ins and outs of the industry, I like that. I like that you take the time to go through it with them. And again, it gets back to your passion for educating people.
Yes,
That's
and then
good.
I obviously can't stop talking, so it just goes on and on. But if you asked my adult children what I do, they would tell their friends, my mom sells plants.
Mm-hmm.
So my mom
Yeah.
sells plants.
Yeah, and my kids, will say, "Oh, my dad works with flowers." And people just
Yeah.
assume I'm a florist, which that would be wonderful if I actually
Yes.
had those kind of talents. But
Right.
no, I'm like, no, I spend most of the time just like editing things. So. All right, moving on to question number 2. If you won the lottery and could start a horticulture business from scratch, what would it be and what would it look like?
Well, it's something I've thought about a lot. So when I saw it as one of your questions, I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Cool.
Starting in this industry, I started working at my good friend's greenhouse and their retail facility, Bradford Greenhouses. And I always had this dream that one day I could open a garden center. And that garden center wouldn't need to be the largest garden center in the area. I would want it to be a place that felt like home. So people could bring their own containers, pick the products they wanted to plant, but they could make a mess at my house, right? I would have the
Like that.
soil and the fertilizer. And I, of course, would be on hand to coach them on what plants would work where. And because I know all the best genetics, because I work in the industry, my garden center would have nothing but the best, right? And I would
like
have I would just have it be my perennial and shrubs and nursery area would be more like walking through a garden. So you could see how to use the plant and then you would go into an area and purchase it. And I would want a spot where people could come and feel at home and where they could learn and have educated staff working the floor that could help them. That would be my vision. And I would call it Bloom Divas Gardens.
Bloom Divas Gardens. Oh, that's perfect. I love that idea of come make a mess at my house. I think that would go over well because I think people do, they get into a space like that. They're going to be more creative and they're going to not be afraid to try things. Yeah.
Right. And then they have people there that can help them. And there would be the ability to not have to. How many times do you go to a garden center in May and it's the week of Mother's Day and people are trying to buy like 4 hanging baskets and 10 bags of soil? And they go out to their Toyota sedan and they're trying to load all this product and they're getting dirt all over the back of their car. Well, if they could bring their containers and planted them at my garden center and then I could deliver them in my truck, then they wouldn't have to make a mess at home or buy soil.
Yep. It makes that experience that much nicer. Yeah, that sounds like a much nicer experience. You're right. I like it. All right. Third question. And as I read through it, it's actually more like 6 questions, I guess. But, anyways, what are your top 3 favorite annuals? And if you want to call out top perennials, go for it. But I'm really interested in annuals, but I'd love to know just
I
your top favorite plants.
picked this question because it is hard.
Yeah.
And I love so many annuals. And anyone that does follow me on social media knows I do over 50 containers plus my garden.
Yep.
So I would have to say my absolute favorite annual right now available in the marketplace would be Monarch Magic Ageratum.
Ooh, okay.
The reason I'm calling it out by branded name is because there's nothing else
No.
like it on the market, period. I've always had, Monardas and Buddleias and things like that to bring butterflies, but I have never seen butterflies like I see when I plant Monarch Magic. And the color is so fantastic. We don't get a lot of periwinkle in our industry. This is a true periwinkle blue. It works in the landscape. It works in containers. It works in hanging baskets. It works in window boxes. It lasts from May until November. It just keeps pushing flower. I even had one of our sales reps from California tell me last year that hers overwintered.
Oh,
Definitely not
wow.
up here.
No.
Down there, it did in Southern California. It's just an incredible product, and it's very versatile because of where you can use it, and it's versatile with what you can mix it with if you choose to put it in a container. Number 2 would be, it's hard. It's so hard, Bill. I would say dahlias,
Okay.
probably because of the high impact it gives when I use them. They come in, different shapes, forms, sizes, doubles, anemone types, single blooms, and it's just probably one of the most photographed flowers on social
yeah.
media. Everybody sees them. All the breeding companies are working towards always bringing something new and fresh to the dahlia market, and the color range is fantastic.
Yeah. Do you have a
So
favorite type? Like, do you like the anemone types? Do you like the dark foliage, green foliage? Like, do you have a favorite?
favorite would be dark foliage and the standard double blooms.
Okay.
Yeah, I like
Cool.
dark foliage. I think it really just pops off the color.
I agree.
But all dahlias are fantastic, and I love them. I love photography. I love the photography you can get from them
Yeah.
too.
For sure.
My number 3. Don't be mad, but it's a tie.
Okay.
Everyone knows how much I love dianthus. I absolutely love that crop. I love the fragrance of it in an annual. I love the fragrance of it in a perennial. Dianthus is just one of my favorite crops, and I'm going to use dianthus because it fits in both buckets. So I love deadheading dianthus.
Okay.
So, I make my morning coffee and I go sit out on the back deck and I just sit there and you hear that little pop when you snap the bloom off the stem. It's so satisfying.
It's like therapeutic. No, I'm
It
with
is.
you. I like deadheading, except geraniums. I like deadheading most plants. So
Maybe except petunias because they're
yeah, they're
sticky.
nasty. I think
They're
they're
nasty.
nasty.
And then my tie for third would be osteospermum. So
Okay.
I love that traditional daisy look, but attach it to all the new modern breeding.
Right.
So I would say 15 years ago, osteospermum, dusk would come and your osteos would start to close up and they didn't like the heat and you had to kind of move them behind the shed with your pansies and bring them back out at the end of August. Well, you don't have to do that anymore. And osteo breeding used to be white and yellow, and now there's double anemone types, there's bicolors, there's heat tolerance, there's ones you can use in the garden, there's ones that you can use in mixed containers, and I just love the simplicity and the English style gardening you can do with it.
Yep.
So osteos would be my tied for third place annual.
And I like some of the more wild, like neon-y colors and the oranges. I know that, like, I remember years ago, this has to be 15 years ago, SIPTA came out with a line. They were named for national parks, and Stefan was presenting them at spring trials. And again, this has to have been 15 plus years ago.
The Zions.
It was the Zion. And that was such a unique look at that time. And that was really the first time that osteos even caught my attention.
Yeah, one of the number one selling Zions is that one that Purple Sun goes like orange to purple to blue, and it's just insane color. It's stunning. And I did a lot of mixed containers last year with a new series of osteos that are coming to the market. People will see them at California Spring Trials this year.
Okay.
They're called petites. So they stay nice and tidy and compact, but they're just full of flower power. I probably did around 10 containers on my deck with just those osteos, but I mixed them with lavender plugs. So instead of using a full-size lavender, I stuck these little lavender plugs in these containers because lavender keeps the mosquitoes away. And that purple with the yellows and pinks and whites of the osteos, I had so many comments, and so many growers from around North America reached out to me and asked me how I did that container and when I planted it and how did I get the lavender to stay so controlled. Well, I cheated. I used a plug.
Right. But I can picture it. Like, that would be like super cute. I like that.
Yes. And I did them in like rustic taupey clay pots. So it had that very French English garden look. It was just stunning.
I like it. I like it.
Osteos is the tie for third. And then perennials, I just moved this past November, and I more than quadrupled my yard space and garden space.
So you need perennials.
I cannot wait for this year. So definitely perennial dianthus is up there because I really like to use it as a border. And again, the newer perennial lines of dianthus on the market, they flower all summer long. They don't, finish at the end of May and they don't do another flush. They just keep flushing. Echinacea is a big one because I have dogs and dogs love to snack on echinacea and the colors are fantastic. And third is a staple that everyone should have in their garden, and that is salvia because it brings all the pollinators to the party. So definitely perennial salvia.
Do you like annual salvia too? Like,
Yes.
What's your thought on annual salvia, like in big pots or combos?
So what I've been doing is I can find if you use a salvia in the center of a planter, sometimes the proportionate, it can look a little off because then you have this tall linear item. What I do is I use my annual salvias at the back of my containers and build my container forward.
So like a backdrop and then...
So you have thriller, then the filler, and then the spiller, but you're working back to front. Because 9 times out of 10, you place your planter against your brick or against your decking, and then the product at the back is going to get wrecked, or you're going to have to constantly turn it to deadhead and clean. So I use salvia a lot. I use salvia, dahlias, and geraniums as my centerpieces. So if you mix something like that Monarch Magic Ageratum with a salvia, with a lantana, oh my Lord, you have bumblebees, hummingbirds, and butterflies all day long. So
I like
it's perfect.
I like that. And I would these days, I would actually put lantana probably up near my top 3. So
yes, it was close. I had it and I crossed it off. And then I switched it out with the dahlias because lantana is one of those products that just keeps going till November. And a lot of the new genetics coming forward, we have sterile lines that aren't going to go to seed. So they and the colors, it's one of my son's favorite plants because he can't understand how it can go from hot pink to orange to yellow on one bloom.
That's true.
Crazy, right?
I love it.
And mosquitoes also don't like lantana.
Okay. Not a lot of things like lantana. Like, I feel like lantana is a pretty safe garden plant.
Yeah, it's prickly and it's stinky.
Yeah. There you go. All right. Final question. What advice would you give to a young person considering the pursuit of a career in horticulture?
What advice would I give them? I would say that talking to my children's age group of people, so young adults, 30 and under, they think that horticulture means they have to work just with plants. But today in our industry, sure, you could be a pathologist, you could be a breeder, but you could also be a product manager. You could run a garden center. You could be a production manager. You could be a sales rep, a product manager, like myself, a territory manager.
A journalist.
A journalist. You could work in social media for a breeder or a garden center. So it's not just about, I think that sometimes people might shy away because they're like, well, do I really want to work in a garden center or work in a greenhouse pinching plants? But that's not all we are. We are so much more and beyond than that. And I think that a lot of the younger generation don't understand everything that's entailed in our industry. And I know my kids now enjoy having friends come over and telling them what I do and showing them our gardens. And they're like, you went to, like I said, Nicaragua for what? Like, you can do that? Yeah. You get to travel? Yeah. All of a sudden, it's a more exciting industry when they get to see all of the different things that are possibilities with this industry.
Yeah, I agree. And even on the flip side, if you do not want to work at a desk job, if you are an outdoor loving nature person, maybe working in a greenhouse or pinching the plants is
Landscaper.
exactly what you want to do. Like our industry has both sides of the spectrum. I love that you call that out. And I completely agree. It's exciting and there's tons of opportunities.
Yeah.
Oh,
For
that's
sure.
cool. Awesome. Well, Tanya, I knew that this was going to get me fired up. I actually didn't think we are going to have so many like plant combo and planting discussions in this, but I love it. I can talk that stuff all day and I like to learn from you and definitely picked up some ideas. I'm going to build some of my combos from the back forward this year and use salvia because I do like salvia. I like it with the dark stems. I just think that adds a lot.
Send me
and I'm
pictures.
sure that the listeners picked up on your energy too. I know that they did, and I knew that you would bring the energy. So thank you again so much for your time today. Thanks for all that you do, and I'm actually going to see you in person in a couple weeks here at Spring
That's
Trials.
right. I'll see you soon.
Awesome. And I think that wraps up this episode of Tech on Demand, but I cannot close without reminding you to subscribe, to like, to share, podcast with your peers. There are more than 235 episodes in the archive covering a wide range of topics. There's really something for everyone in professional horticulture, in garden center retail, landscape, CEA production, and more. Take care out there.